Hi, Sheila Banks here. To make my latest blog post accessible to more of humanity, I have translated it into a video format. May it be helpful to the Great Awakening. It is going to be biblical. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus Christ, John 14:6. Across the Western world, there are increasing numbers of us reaching the same conclusion. We actually have had a cabal of psychopaths steering the trajectory of human history. There are heaps of credible information about their secret societies and connections to the occult. And these creatures have been so bold as to erect statues of their Moloch idol in our public squares. It is as the folks in the Bible declared, we have Satan worshippers in our midst. And the destruction and suffering they have inflicted upon an unsuspecting humanity throughout the ages is a testimony to their innate evil. This cabal of psychopaths has been masterful at framing a narrative to keep us fussing and divided by race, religion, gender, politics, and so on. The news, movies, books, and so many more of our communication channels have been usurped and are being used to push lies and distortions onto the masses. By capitalizing on the emotional aspects of our mammalian nature, these psychopaths have got us to willingly participate in their destructive schemes. And they have herded humanity into one war after another. Yet, in spite of the cabal's powerful propaganda machine, we are gaining insights into our human predicament like never before. With instant connections and information at our fingertips, barriers between us are being brought down. And so has the curtain that has been concealing an intra-species enemy in our midst. We now have a much better understanding about the psychopaths among us. They have a different genetic profile and functional MRI results than the rest of us. Do a search of the topic and you will find a substantial number of videos made by concerned psychologists. We too should be concerned. Our species has reached a tipping point. Like a garden being choked out by weeds, human societies have a deadly infestation of psychopaths. Although this creature looks like us, it is actually a hominid without a conscience. It is the beast prophesied about in the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation. Little did John, the author, know that his prophetic insights would be 2,000 years in the making. John and the other sojourners in the New Testament did not take the word of their prophets lightly. These Jews of the Bible believed their prophets of old had passed down insights about the human predicament that had survival value. They had Old Testament texts such as Genesis and the Book of Enoch, and would have been familiar with the stories about fallen angels mating with human females. And they paid attention to their prophets' bold proclamations about the link between evil and the ungodly offspring of these unions. But that was not enough for these Jews. They also believed in their prophets' declaration of a Messiah yet to come. So, what was it about Jesus that these Christian Jews found so special as to accept him as the Savior they were looking for? Just like their venerable prophets, Jesus had made contact with the Almighty, but Jesus had a unique way of talking about his mystical union. He likened his connection to God as to a relationship between a father and son. Jesus knew he was operating on behalf of the Creator. The Father is living in me. The Father is doing his work through me, he declared to his followers. But it took more than a mystical union to convince these Jews that Jesus was their Savior. They could see that this emissary for the Almighty had incorporated the prophetic wisdom of the Jews into his message, but with fresh insight. He had grasped the truth about our human predicament that had not been fully appreciated or at least articulated by his Jewish predecessors. In the book of Thomas, Jesus says, "For the body is a domestic animal, therefore you must go about perfecting yourself." He understood that humans are creatures who have been domesticated, but by whom? When Jesus tells us to go about perfecting ourselves, he wants us to see that we are creatures in need of self-awareness. He advises us to stop pointing out the speck in another's eye and instead deal with the log in our own. The perfection process, then, starts with our humility. Without it, we can easily justify any of the thoughts swirling around in our brains. A glaring example that comes to mind is the jihadi terrorist who yells out the name of God while decapitating a woman. "Thou shalt not kill" means exactly that. It matters not how loud you shout the name of God. Chances are this murderer has no idea of what a brainwashed, deluded primate he truly is. Being human requires us to rein in our free will according to our Creator's will, and not to the will of some psychopathic warlord. Do not consider people who are like animals devouring one another to be human beings, cautions Jesus. He wants us to know that there is a hominid in our midst that looks human, but is not by virtue of a lack of conscience. Could these psychopaths be related to the evil ones that the ancient prophets like Enoch were howling about? In the book of Revelation, John mentioned those who visit the synagogue of Satan. In his visions of the future, he saw what the infiltration of the satanic does to human societies. He had glimpses into the out-of-control corruption and depravity generated by these psychopaths, and by the gullible humans who go along with their plans. John knew this infestation of evil would reach a tipping point. For him it was inevitable that a time would come when the very survival of humankind would be threatened by these evil ones. And something would have to be done. Humanity would need a way forward. The Jews in the New Testament saw in Jesus the way forward. Jesus wants to enlighten us with the truth about our predicament as primates. The road ahead requires an adjustment in how we perceive our humble circumstance as domestic animals. We are creatures in need of an ethical discipline. By working with those inner fears, fantasies, and desires that prevent us from doing the right thing, we get to forge a conscience. And this capacity for conscience is what separates the wheat from the weeds, Homo sapiens sapiens from the psychopaths. Jesus knew harvest time would come, and that time is now. We have reached the end of an epoch. Our species' survival is on the line. We must do what we can to rid ourselves of the evil that has penetrated our societies. No longer can the psychopaths be left alone to run the show. We humans must unite around a core of conscience and work as a collective to seize the reins. Sheep no more. The disciples of Jesus knew he was the Messiah. He had a plan for our salvation that speaks to the evolutionary ascent of humankind. These Jews for Jesus knew he was the Christ, that evolutionary catalyst predestined to lead the way.